Finishing up a 5-day clinic where we basically had 30 very inexperienced riders with very novice horses show up at a new facility at a fairgrounds, and you can imagine day one was creating total chaos for everybody. But it was such a great opportunity and such a great learning experience where even if you had a rider who was unsure about riding with a new person and unsure how their horse was going to respond, and for a lot of people up here, they only get to ride seasonally in the summertime, so this is kind of the first big outing of the year, and really helping folks learn how to slow down, that when there's chaos and when there's unwanted scenarios that are happening with their horse, irrelevant of where they're at, whether it's somewhere familiar or somewhere new like coming to a clinic, that it's a great opportunity to have a conversation. And last week we really talked about having a conversation in 15 for Friday, and why learning how to support our horse's brain and then influencing the movements and the physical behaviors is such a crucial part of the conversation, and allows for your horse to learn to trust you when things change. I frequently use the word patternized. People love habits and patterns, horses love habits and patterns, and the day that the pattern is changed or someone asks something different of the human or horse, they tend to struggle. And a big thing I really promote to people is they need to learn how to be adaptable no matter the situation. And so this scenario where you had 30 inexperienced people and horses show up in one location was such a great opportunity to teach folks how to take a situation that could seem potentially overwhelming with screaming horses. We've had horrendous weather. We went from 90-degree heat to yesterday lightning and thunderstorms and crashing down weather and no indoor arena in sight. And how do we help our horse learn how to not become overwhelmed? How do we help ourselves learn how to not become overwhelmed? And the best thing we can do is learn how to have conversations where we're not creating patterns with our horse. So if at home or in a familiar place, we're only asking things in one way of our horse, or we're only putting a certain amount of value to something that we're asking of our horse, then when we show up somewhere new, that same kind of uneventful conversation or experience at home may suddenly feel really dramatic with a bunch of distractions and chaos. On top of adding inexperienced riders and horses, we had new location, we have had lots of wind, we've had tarps and flags flapping everywhere, plastic bags. We also had an RV park that moved in, so we had tons of huge motorhomes and fifth wheel trailers coming past. And as a bonus, we had the summer football camp come in. So we had about 60 football players right next to us, yelling, screaming, running drills as we were working with horses and people who were trying to learn how to help their horse, how to help themselves when they were struggling. So a lot of times when there's chaos, the human's mind tends to fixate on what they don't want. I hope that my horse doesn't drag me to the gate or to the other horses. I hope my horse doesn't act, jigging or bouncing all over the place. I hope my horse doesn't fill in the blank. And so much of the time we fixate on what we don't want, that in the moment that our horse needs our support and clarity and specific conversation the most, we offer it the least. And so a lot of times it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where the more folks fixate on what they don't want, of course, that's exactly what the horse ends up doing. So this clinic was such a great opportunity for people to learn how to slow down, and rather than learn to buy into whatever the horse was offering when it seemed like to the horse it was life or death, he had to get back to the stalls where he had suddenly fell in love with the new neighbor horse, how to redirect that horse's thought, how to decrease that horse's energy so that he could learn to check in, so that his body and his brain were in the same place. And even if it was only for a few seconds or a few minutes, that in that moment it was a window of opportunity for the rider to then help the horse learn to search for something other than what the horse was fixated on. And what folks tend to ignore or forget in the moments of chaos is that the more you let the horse fixate on whatever it is he's come up with, the less creative or willing the horse is to search for something else. So the sooner you can catch the horse's brain becoming distracted by things like screaming football players next door, or flapping flags, or, their new buddy that's in a different arena doing something else, and the more you can not just say, no, not that, but you can actually suggest what you do want. And that when you present something of your horse, especially in a time when there's chaos and distraction and stress going on and bad weather, become specific. The things that you ask of your horse need to be just a few steps and a pause. And it's not about not riding, but the physical pause allows for a mental pause, for that horse to check in, for you to regroup, for the horse to regroup, and then for you to be clear as to what you're going to ask next of your horse. And, so much of the time, though, because people become defensive when they're uncomfortable, first they go passive, then they become defensive. And when they become defensive, they become critical of the horse. So when the horse is offering unwanted behavior or behavior that's stressful to the human, many times humans tend to critique it. Don't do this, don't do that, don't think about your buddy, don't jig, don't prance, don't drag me sideways. But they don't offer, see, we even have helicopters flying overhead. They don't offer a positive alternative as to what they do want. And if you can learn to work with your horse, that no matter how much chaos that horse is showing you, how much crazy behavior you may be seeing, you need to understand that the horse is asking for help. He is only acting flamboyant because he is mentally and emotionally stressed, and he is not clear on where his place needs to be in life, in the herd, in that moment. And when you are working with your horse, you're basically creating a herd. And you have two options. You can leave it up to the horse to make the decisions, or you can make the decisions. And when you do make the decisions, it is not about a dictatorship. You making the decisions as the leader and being specific and offering a positive alternative versus a critique when a horse is feeling stressed or concerned or unsure gives that horse support and guidance and confidence that you are going to help them in a moment of feeling overwhelmed or unsure of what was about to happen. And the more they learn to follow your lead, in the sense of wherever you're directing first their brain, then their energy, and then their body, the more confident they will feel that every time they're unsure, rather than frantically looking around for where the other horses are or buying into the chaos and distraction of the moment, the horse will learn to check in with you and say, how would you like to handle this moment? How would you like to handle this situation? And so much of the time, people can hear this theoretically, but for them to actually commit in that uncomfortable moment when their horse is bouncing around on the end of the lead rope next to them, when their horse is trying to drag them back to the out gate, or the buddy horse in the arena, or is spooking, people tend to not believe that they can make a change, and they can. There is always opportunity for you to have a supportive alternative that you can help suggest to that horse. Remember, they are not creative enough to go, gee, this is dumb, let me quit doing something, let me try something else. So you have to be specific and clear where you want their thought, where you want their body, and that by following through until that horse finds what it is that you want, you are teaching that horse that you will stay with them through the meltdown, and you will help them get to the other side. Most of the time when there is chaos and the human is critical, the human then stands off to the side or goes passive in the saddle and waits to see what the horse is going to do. And so the horse that's already feeling overwhelmed by its circumstances now feels that he's totally alone and not supported by the rider, becomes more defensive. And then eventually, when the horse's frantic behavior becomes too flamboyant or too dangerous or too dramatic, suddenly the human wants to interject and have their horse listen to them. Well, you haven't set the standard or the tone or the conversation to set it up that you actually feel good to your horse for him to listen to your input or how you'd like him to handle something. So remember, no matter how minor the scenario is, whether you're at home somewhere safe and comfortable, whether you're somewhere new in a situation that's unfamiliar to you, you're not sure how it's going to go, there's tons of chaos around you, there is always opportunity for you to offer clear and specific guidance. And remember, you're going to adapt. You may have had a plan to take your horse 5 steps to the left and have him look at the jump standard, and instead something came up during those 5 steps and you had to come up with a different plan. That's okay. You can continually keep changing, but the more adaptable that you are in the scenarios of chaos and fear and drama, bad weather, football players next door to the clinic, all these unwanted things, it is such a great opportunity for you to learn to have the confidence to continue to make decisions the entire time and to help your horse through it.